Here we have gathered side by side, circle of kinship, come and step inside. May all who seek here find a kindly word. May all who speak here feel they have been heard. Sing now together this our heart's own song. Here we have gathered, called to celebrate days of our lifetime, measures small and great. We of all ages, women, children, men, infants and sages, sharing what we can. Sing now together this our heart's own song. Life has its battles, sorrows and regret, but in the shadows let us not forget. We who now gather know each other's pain. Kindness can heal us as we give, we gain. Sing now to friendship this our heart's own song.
We are in the season of nostalgia and tradition, whether that's baking the same pie that you've baked for generations or getting mad when some new song comes on your Christmas playlist. There's so much expectation that we do things the way we have always done them or just modify them just slightly, right? Like that's this moment. And sometimes I need permission, and so I'm giving permission to all of you to do something different, if you like, to look at those traditions the way it's always been done and decide if you want to do them or not. Because we don't need that peer pressure from dead people, as I've heard tradition defined, unless we want to take that on. And we are a people, as Unitarian Universalists, who question what has been and try to chart a new path forward. So let's do that in this moment and in all of the moments. Come, let us gather. Come, let us worship together.
Good morning. I'm Gordon Bolar, a member of the Sunday Services Committee here at People's Church. And I'd like to welcome you in person, or if you're watching on Zoom, or those viewing remotely, welcome. People's Church is a member congregation of the Unitarian Universalist Association, and it's part of a long tradition of liberal religion. Part of our faith includes the right to change one's mind and our openness to change. You might notice in your order of service today that Reverend Rachel's sermon will focus on an openness to change and the story of Francis David a little later on. So don't change your mind and leave. That's the only thing that you can't do. Make sure you stay around for Reverend Rachel's sermon. But other than that, you're free to change your mind. So welcome to People's Church and happy holiday season.
I mean, if you need to go, that's also okay. We don't lock the doors, but I do hope you stay. A few announcements as we begin. First, we're in the midst of a congregational survey. So I invite you, if you haven't yet, to complete the survey. If you want to get out your phone and follow the link, and whenever that boring moment in the service is for you, work on your survey, or maybe the boring moment at 2 p.m. today, or whenever it is, right? It takes between 5 and 10 minutes. We've had about 80 people complete it so far, which is great. This is open to anybody who considers themselves part of the church, members, non-members, people of all ages. We're just trying to capture a snapshot of who the church is and who we are in this moment, and do some comparisons to who we were about 10 years ago, and then we have data from about 25 years ago as well. So we'll be sharing some of that with you in the new year. We're asking people to complete this before the end of 2024, so you do have some time. And then if you are here in person, we do have a few wonderful items from the bazaar still for sale. So there's some jams, there's some 3D printed chalices, there's some crafted goodies, and I invite you to pick some up on your way out. We accept check, cash, and you can use our online giving to make purchases that way as well. Now, let's sing.
Yes, I invite you all to rise and body our spirit to sing our opening song together. As tranquil streams that meet and merge and flow as one to seek the sea, our kindred hearts and minds unite to build a church that shall be free, free from the bonds that bind the mind to narrow thought and lifeless creed, free from a social code that fails to serve the cause of human need, a freedom that reveres the past but trusts the dawning future more, and bids the soul in search of truth adventure boldly and explore. Prophetic church, the future waits your liberating ministry. Go forward in the power of love, proclaim the truth that makes us free.
Now I'd like to invite Vincent to come forward and help us light our chalice over here. There's Vincent. Good. Thank you, Vincent. If you're lighting a chalice at home, you're encouraged to type in the chat box, a chalice is lit or lighted in your neighborhood, city, or street. And our chalice reading for today is from Article 2 of the bylaws of the Unitarian Universalist Association. Transformation. We adapt to the changing world. We covenant to collectively transform and grow spiritually and ethically. Openness to change is fundamental to our Unitarian and Universalist heritages, never complete and never perfect.
In addition to our chalice here at People's Church, we have 29 Zoom connections this morning, and there are chalices, flames burning in the Millwood neighborhood, in Portage, in Free Syria, in Munson Lake near Grand Junction, Galesburg, Millwood, Parkview Hills, and another in Parkview Hills. What a gift it is to be together in this time, even when we are not all together in one place. Now I'd like to invite our children forward for a conversation. I am so glad you all are here with us today. Our youth, our oldest children, our 7th graders through 12th graders, are off on a field trip today. They are at St. Thomas Catholic Church learning about Catholicism. So here's our jet pig, our mascot of sorts, to help us remember what we think is important here at People's Church. And we have a jet pig because it stands for something. Can you all help me remember what the words what jet pig stands for? Grown-ups too. So J is for justice. E is for equity. Oh my goodness, you guys are good. T is for transformation. P is for
Peace.
not peace, but that's a good answer. Pluralism. I is for interdependence, that we're all connected to each other. And G is for what?
Generosity.
Generosity. Oh my goodness, you guys are amazing. I thought we might have to ask the grown-ups for help with this, but they got it. And then what's at the very center of it all?
A heart.
And what is a heart a symbol of?
Love.
Love. Oh, you guys are amazing. So I'm going to be talking to the grown-ups today about transformation. And that part of that is being able to change your mind. So I have a little story conversation to have with you guys. So we're going to imagine that when a baby is born, it's given a bag to hold its beliefs in, perhaps from Trader Joe's, perhaps not. And as this tiny baby grows, it gets new beliefs, and it puts them in its bag of beliefs. Where do you get beliefs from? What do you think?
Something, or do something, and then you just like, wow, that was interesting. I believe that.
So you do something, you see something, you hear something, and you're like, wow, that was interesting. I might believe that now. I like that. What are other ideas? Leah, what do you think? Where did beliefs come from?
Belief is like hope for someone who left. They will come back. That's belief.
Oh, a belief is having hope that someone who might have left will come back. I love that as a belief. May, what do you think?
Belief, somebody.
Okay, so someone can tell you something and you decide whether or not you believe in it. Right, so we get beliefs from our own experiences. We get beliefs from other people might tell us things. Maybe we learn something new from science or history and we have a new idea. Maybe we see an amazing book or TV show or movie and that helps us question things. So we just kind of are going through the world getting new beliefs. And some people carry their belief bag and get their beliefs in it once and then close it really tight. And they don't let anything new come in, right?
There's a hole in the bag.
Well, pretend there's not a hole in the bag. That ruins the metaphor. And so they hold it really tight and they don't let any new ideas in. Some people are like that. Some people keep their bag super wide open and maybe just kind of go like this and just let anything float into it. Any new idea that comes their way, they're like, oh yeah, that's my belief. I believe anything. And some people, whether their bag is wide open or closed, will take it and turn it into a weapon and hit other people over the head with their beliefs and say, if you don't hold exactly my beliefs,
No.
you're doing it wrong.
No, you're doing it wrong.
Oh, are you hitting me over the head with the jet pig? Yeah, we don't even do that here. We don't even do that.
You don't believe what you see.
Right, and so what we do as Unitarian Universalists is we keep our bag pretty open, but we pay close attention to what goes into the bag, right? So we think about it and question and wonder together and on our own about what we believe. And it's not all the same, right? I think if everybody had a bag that they wanted to unpack and show us in this room, it would all look different, right? I don't think anybody has the exact same set of beliefs in this place, but we all kind of hold our bag in this thoughtful way, being careful about what we put in it. So that's what I'm going to be talking to the grown-ups about. I know most of you are going to go out and learn about Buddhism today. And so I ask you to keep your belief bag open, and maybe you'll learn something new that will change your mind, or maybe not. But if you do this with thought and care, then you're doing it just the way we do it here at People's Church, okay? Thank you so much for helping me tell this story. Looks like we have a stowaway under our joys and sorrows table today, but that's okay. It is time to go to class. Let's sing, okay? No, that pig stays here.
Go forth in peace in search of wisdom, with love to guide you on your way. And may the joy of life surround you wherever you may go. Go forth in peace in search of wisdom, with love to guide you on your way. And may the joy of life surround you wherever you may go.
People's people are generous people. One of the ways that we are generous is about once a month we send our offering collection out to do good and important work beyond the walls of our congregation by giving it to another organization. So today I'm delighted to have a People's Church member, Kelly Henderson, who is the Executive Director of Ministry with Community, come and tell us about the good and important work that is happening there. I invite you to be as generous as you are able. Welcome, Kelly.
Good morning. As Reverend Rachel said, I'm Kelly Henderson, Executive Director at Ministry with Community. I almost said People's Church. That was weird. I've been a member of People's Church for almost 20 years now. I've been a little behind the scenes lately, so I hope to be back soon. Anyway, talking about Ministry with Community, I know a lot of you are very familiar. Some of you have even worked there in the past. And this might be new to some folks as well, because I'm seeing a lot of new faces here today, which is really exciting. So Ministry with Community is a daytime shelter and resource center for folks in Kalamazoo who are struggling, perhaps experiencing homelessness, extreme poverty, mental health issues, substance use, and other disorders in our community. When we think about folks that need these kind of services, such as public restrooms, meal support for breakfast and lunch, meeting one-to-one with a social service staff to get help with employment or physical needs or connect with another agency, we often think about people who are experiencing true homelessness, who are staying at the emergency overnight shelter, who maybe are staying outside, even in this weather. And while that is certainly true, a good percent of the folks that come to us are ALICE households. If you're not familiar with that term, it's asset limited, income constrained, employed. We used to refer to as the working poor. And we know in our community that prices have gone up. Rent is astronomical, and folks are really facing a hard time and choosing if they're gonna buy food or pay their rent or get gas in the car to get to work or buy a pair of work boots that they need. So they're coming to us to help stretch that budget and make those connections to still keep moving forward in their life. So when I heard that today's sermon would be on openness and transformation, I thought, oh, what a deep connect. For so many of our folks, you may see them at a street corner flying a sign, asking for food or for money. You might see them walking down the street, and I invite you to be open and not look away and to say hello. A side story, my youngest son was dual enrolled at high school and KVCC downtown, and he came through with some friends as they were going to class, and they saw a gentleman who probably used services at Ministry with Community sitting on a stoop. And my son said, "Oh, hey, hi," and kept walking, and the friend said, "Oh, don't talk to them, don't talk to them." And my son said, "Why? They're a person too." And that's what People's Church is about, is recognizing the inherent worth and dignity of every person. And that's what we strive to do every day at Ministry with Community, is to invite folks in, to give a warm hello, and to connect them with the things that they need to transform their life and to be empowered to make positive life changes. As Reverend Rachel said, I invite you to give freely as you're so able or inclined. And also I recognize that many of you have been supporters for many years, and I am so grateful for that. Thank you.
Please join me in giving thanks for all that sustains us. From the countless gifts we have been given, gifts of life, love, and sustenance, we bring these small portions to share the works of love, which none of us can accomplish alone.
This is a community that supports one another. One of the ways we do this is we take time when we gather to share the joys and sorrows and other important milestones of our lives. If you have something you want to share with our community today, if you're with us on Zoom, I invite you to type it into the chat box. If you're here in person, I invite you to come forward, speak briefly, and share your name. I now place a few more stones for all of the joy and sorrow we're holding quietly in our heart, the joy and sorrow in our wider community and our wider world. Sources of reason and radiance, sources of courage and compassion, keep watch with those who work or watch or weep this day. May the suffering be soothed. May the weary find rest. May the sick be tended. May the dying and those who love them find peace. May the joyous be shielded. May all of us know we are wrapped in a love that surrounds us always, a web that connects us to all that exists. I now invite us all into a few moments of silence. A prayer against apathy. Nature is only ever at work. Take stock of the world around you, constantly in movement, each action suited to its end. Fire, with its ferocity and veracity, devours, ignites, it roars its presence and illumines the front. From it, people recoil. It singes and scars, but it also clears space. Some of us must act like fire. Water, with its elegant erosive powers, steady is the flow of its work, with direction, sustainability. A river is what nourishes and carves. Not a typhoon which destroys indiscriminately, recedes, and leaves the people in drought. Some of us must act like water. Earth, with its food to eat and generative soil, its many forms of living companions to comfort us in times of solitude, of loss. Earth rejuvenates and holds us. Some of us must act like earth. Air, so integral to all of us, we must remind ourselves to notice our breath. Not one of us lives without it. Not one of us is untouched by it. It cannot help but give and forgive. Single-minded, it knows everything as one. Some of us must act like air. May we each model in our natures the best in nature, eternally changing, knowing only movement and an urge to create life. Amen, and blessed be.
I invite you to join me in song from your seats. We'll do it one more time. Dona nobis pacem pacem. Dona nobis pacem. Dona nobis pacem. Dona nobis pacem.
Our first reading this morning is Always Bring a Pencil by Naomi Shihab Nye. There will not be a test. It does not have to be a number 2 pencil, but there will be certain things, the quiet flush of waves, ripe scent of fish, smooth ripple of the wind's second name, that prefer to be written about in pencil. It gives them more room to move around.
The Forest by Nikita Gill. One day, when you wake up, you will find that you've become a forest. You've grown roots and found strength in them that no one thought you had. You have become stronger and full of life-giving qualities. You've learned to take all the negativity around you and turn it into oxygen for easy breathing. A host of wild creatures live inside you, and you call them stories. A variety of beautiful birds nest inside your mind, and you call them memories. You have become an incredible, self-sustaining thing of epic proportions. And you should be so proud of yourself, of how far you have come from the seeds of who you used to be. And our final reading is from Something That May Shock and Discredit You by Daniel M. Lavery, a memoir and essays. As my friend Julian puts it, only half winkingly, God blessed me by making me trans. For the same reason God made wheat but not bread, and fruit but not wine, so that humanity might share in the act of creation. So there was a vision for our next song. It's a song that has 2 melody lines, one in Hungarian and one in English. And because there was snow and choir practice was canceled, I invite you to imagine a beautiful Hungarian melody line, because we are only going to sing in English today. But imagine.
So I do invite you to rise and bow to your spirit, and if you think you can carry the English after 2 or 3 times, I could probably add the Hungarian. Where there is faith, there is love. Where there is love, there is peace. Where there is peace, there is blessing. Where there is blessing, there is God. Where there is God, there is no need. And it repeats. Where there is faith, there is love. Where there is love, there is peace. Where there is peace, there is blessing. Where there is blessing, there is God. Where there is God, there is no need. Once more on English. Where there is faith, there is love. Where there is love, there is peace. Where there is peace, there is blessing. Where there is blessing, there is God. Where there is God, there is no need. Holy tot seretet, ol seretet, tot beke, ol aldash, ol ishten, ot sukshek ninshen. One last time together on the English. Where there is faith, there is love. Where there is love, there is peace. Where there is peace, there is blessing. Where there is blessing, there is God. Where there is God, there is no need.
We all have moments when our beliefs change. There's a death, a diagnosis, a disappointment, and we come to a new understanding, generally after a lot of work, of loss and suffering and why bad things happen. We form a relationship across difference, and our assumptions, maybe that we didn't even know we were holding, start to disintegrate. We begin to understand others and ourselves in a new way. We experience art, that book or movie or music or painting or sculpture that challenges us and brings us a new understanding. And the teachings of science shift how we make sense of the world. We have mystical experiences, those moments of connection to something bigger than ourselves, that provide both challenge and assurance. Open to these kinds of moments and these changes and these experiences is a core practice of Unitarian Universalism, a core posture of our faith. We keep our belief bag open and think carefully about what goes inside, as I told our children earlier. We carry pencils with us, not because we anticipate a test, but because we know we might need the eraser when we grow and change and shift. Our religious conclusions are tentative, drafts subject to revision as needed. Francis David was an exemplar of this open way of believing, of this willingness to change one's mind, of this commitment to exploration and learning. Francis David was a 16th century religious leader in the Kingdom of Transylvania. Yes, Transylvania, but this is not a Dracula story, I'm sorry to say. That would have been a fascinating crossover. But this is a true story that takes place in a region of forests and mountains in Eastern Europe. It's a region that's now part of Romania, but was in the 16th century its own independent kingdom. A small kingdom squashed between the more powerful states surrounding it, the Catholics to the north and west, and Muslims and Orthodox Christians to the east and south. Transylvania then, and now, is an in-between place, a diverse in ethnicities and religions. So Francis David was born into this world around 1520. He was born in a family of mixed ethnicity, which was fairly rare at the time. His father was German and his mother Hungarian. He was raised Catholic and went to study at university and became a Catholic priest. And this was the era of the Protestant Reformation, when European intellectuals and religious leaders began questioning the teachings of the Catholic Church, developing new ideas that became Protestant Christianity. There was intense religious conflict in many parts of Europe. And Francis David was fascinated by all of these new ideas being developed and spread by this new thing called the printing press. You could actually get a book or a pamphlet now in a way that just wasn't possible a few generations earlier. So he kept his belief bag open and first converted to Lutheranism. And he was appointed the Lutheran bishop of the Hungarian language section of the Lutheran Church. And then he participated in a debate with other Protestant religious leaders, and he changed his mind. So he became a Reformed Christian and soon became a high-ranking leader in that tradition as well. So he was later appointed as the court preacher to the King of Transylvania, a man named King John Sigismund, a young king with an openness to new ideas. And as part of that role, he got access to the royal library, which was a very big deal for this nerdy guy, because he could have access to all of these books, which were hard to come by then. So through his study in that royal library, through close reading of the Bible, and conversation with other intellectuals in the king's court, David started to believe in the unity of God rather than the Trinity. So God is one, not the three of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. The name for this belief is Unitarianism. And though that belief and that debate about the nature of God is not central to us, really, for most of us as present-day Unitarian Universalists, that conviction and that position is where our name comes from. So David began to preach on this Unitarian idea. He challenged the idea of the Trinity and questioned whether Jesus was part of God or simply an exceptional human. The king was interested in this idea, and he did not like all of this religious conflict unfolding in his kingdom. There were all these different sorts of Christians who just kept fighting with each other about things that seemed kind of minor to this king. So he called all of them together for a debate to see if they could just settle their differences once and for all and pick one religion for the kingdom. Unsurprisingly, that did not work. The religious differences were not solved in one long afternoon. But surprisingly, the king listened and didn't pick a winner. Instead of declaring a state religion and forcing everyone to follow it, which was the fashion for kings in that era, King John Sigismund, in partnership with nobles of various ethnicities and religions in his kingdom, issued the Edict of Torda, which was the first law of religious tolerance in all of Europe. It said there were 4 acceptable faiths: Catholic, Lutheran, Reformed Christianity, and Unitarianism, and people could choose between them. And while our contemporary perspective might note that 4 is actually not that big of a number for religious tolerance, And there's a lot of things left off the list, including things that were practiced in that kingdom. This is still a radically inclusive idea for Europe 450 years ago. This was radical. And shortly after that edict, the king declared himself a Unitarian. So King John Sigismund of Transylvania became the only Unitarian king in history, at least so far. So 2 years later, King John died. His carriage overturned, and he never recovered from his injuries. King John was young, and he had no heirs. So the nobles elected a new king, Stephen Bathory. King Stephen was Catholic and was supported by the leaders of the Muslim Ottoman Empire nearby. So King Stephen did not like the religious tolerance established by his predecessor, but he knew that imposing one state religion would be wildly unpopular. So he didn't do that, but he did restrict the allowed religions in a different way. His new rule, the new law, was that the religions could not change. The 4 allowed religions, Catholic, Lutheran, Reformed, Unitarian, were allowed, but they had to stay exactly as they were at the moment of the king's death, the previous king's death. So even if you don't know this story, and I know many of you do, I bet you can imagine how this plays out for Francis David, our seeker. He was a leader of this new Unitarian church in Transylvania by then, and he kept learning, kept debating, kept changing his mind. He started wondering publicly about all kinds of Christian teachings. What does communion mean anyway? Why do we do that? Why do we practice baptism of infants? Should we pray in Jesus' name? He looked to the Bible for answers and to debates and to his own use of reason. And during this time, he became the bishop of the Unitarian churches of Transylvania and encouraged congregations to change their practices as their understandings developed. He knew he was breaking the law in doing this. His friends and allies told him to stop. The rulers of Transylvania told him to stop, but nevertheless, he persisted. Francis David was arrested and put on trial for the crime of innovation. He was found guilty and sentenced to life in prison, and he died in prison a few years later, a Unitarian martyr convicted of innovation, punished by the state because he changed his mind about religion and encouraged others to change their mind as well. The Unitarian Church in Transylvania continued after the death of their first bishop. They survived hostile governments and shifting borders and continue today as a mostly ethnic Hungarian group in what is now Romania. Francis David and the Transylvanian Unitarians are more our distant cousins than our direct spiritual ancestors. It's a complicated family tree, and some of it is lost to history. We don't know how ideas were transmitted across different parts of Europe back then. But we know that we are connected by kinship, by commitment to questioning. And relationships have been built, especially after the end of communism in Romania, and a greater openness to international connections. So the song we heard earlier, and that we tried to muddle our way through, was written not too long ago, written for American and Hungarian Unitarians to sing together, where they each sing their own melody and their own words, and it blends together. We couldn't quite pull that off, but imagine, just imagine. So we are connected in that music, but in our actions, through our choice to be together, and by our shared commitments to an open posture in religion, to the commitment to change our minds when our experiences, our learning, and our reason call us to. So this is what our new value language points to. As Gordon read earlier, transformation. We adapt to the changing world. We covenant to collectively transform and grow spiritually and ethically. Openness to change is fundamental to our Unitarian Universalist heritages, never complete and never perfect. Most religions have a different approach to truth than we do. Many point to sources, to text, to tradition, to gurus or prophets or teachers and say, that is where the truth is. And sometimes saying, and then that is where the truth is not, but it's at least implied, right? They claim that truth has been revealed and is now done making itself known, that people today should follow the teachings that were developed in another time. And as Unitarian Universalists, we have a very different approach to how we believe, to what sources have authority. If you want to be really academic about this, you can say that we have a different theological epistemology, but then no one will know what you're talking about. So we do not believe that truth is sealed away in a collection of sources or moments in time. Truth is forever making itself known. Revelation is not sealed, and it is continually coming to us through experience, through relationship, through study and reason and art and science. The new UUA bylaws describe our sources of inspiration. Direct experience of transcending mystery and wonder are primary sources for Unitarian Universalist inspiration. These experiences open our hearts, renew our spirits, and transform our lives. We draw upon and are inspired by sacred, secular, and scientific understandings that help us make meaning and live into our values. Grateful for the experiences that move us, aware of the religious ancestries we inherit, and enlivened by the diversity which enriches our faith, we are called to ever deepen and expand our wisdom. It is this approach to truth, this call to ever deepen and expand our wisdom that Francis David died for, more than any particular truth itself, right? He was a martyr for process rather than content. He died for the practice of innovation, and we follow in this legacy. In the Statement of Values, it names that our heritages call us to be open to change, and that our heritages are never complete and never perfect. This is a powerful statement in this moment. We as Unitarian Universalists do not turn to the past as our primary source of inspiration. It is inspiring, of course. There's a reason I did tell you the story of Francis David, but it is inspiring alongside so much else. As Unitarian Universalists, we do not yearn for a mythic greatness that has passed us by, an era when things were easier, or perhaps a time when America was great. We might imagine what it might have been like to be at the court of King John Sigismund, our Unitarian king, and then we remember that that was before there was antibiotics, and probably none of us would have reached adulthood, or a very small percentage, right? The past is not perfect, and calling it great is not being honest. It is creating a myth, not a history. So as Unitarian Universalists, we are inheritors of a legacy of changing one's mind about things that matter. Francis David and the other early modern martyrs, that's hard to say, questioned the Trinity and the practices of the church. As scientific knowledge grew, we incorporated theories of evolution and the Big Bang and so much else into our understandings of how we got here. We use the tools of science and history and literature to better understand the context of ancient sources, especially the Bible, that inspired us. And I stand here in your pulpit as a woman, in part because the Universalists changed their mind about who could be religious leaders and started ordaining women clergy in 1863. That was a long time ago. And the first woman ordained in our country with the support of her denomination, Olympia Brown, a Universalist, was born here in Kalamazoo County. She moved away when she was 2, but we can still claim something. She was born in Prairie Ron down by Schoolcraft. That's a story for a different day, but she's ours. We've changed our minds on other important things. There's a history of questioning practices and rituals and what makes sense and what does it actually mean when we do that thing we do, and should we keep doing it? Unitarian Universalist congregations can no longer be racially segregated. That was a thing we used to do. In 1967, more than 80% of surveyed Unitarian Universalists said that homosexuality should be discouraged. And then just 3 years later, after the Stonewall Rebellion and the beginning of the modern queer liberation movement, the UU General Assembly, our highest governing body, passed a resolution calling for the end of discrimination against homosexuals and bisexuals and the development of a sex education curriculum that promotes healthy attitudes towards diverse forms of sexuality. So that was in 1970. And that program that they said we should have is now our whole lives comprehensive sexuality education program that we offer regularly to our children and youth here, and that one of our adults is taking to teach to adults at Ministry with Community. In a generation, if we get it right, someone will be able to stand in this pulpit and add to the litany how we showed up for trans, non-binary, and gender non-conforming folks, how we showed up for other folks in this hard political moment, how we celebrated how truth about gender makes itself known in all of our hearts and bodies. We're in the midst of this now, learning and growing and doing our best, and I hope we can become good ancestors here. And being open-hearted and open-minded with a loose and discerning hold on our bag of belief, we'll be called to change and grow in ways we cannot even anticipate yet. When I share this overview so quickly, it becomes easy to imagine that we were always on the right side of history. We weren't. These institutional changes were hard and conflicted and sometimes painful. People left the church. People were angry. But in aggregate, we kept our minds and our hearts open and grew spiritually and ethically and changed our positions, our practices, and our policies in response. Now, let's imagine a time-traveling Francis David comes to visit us from 1575 or so, just before it all went badly for him. And there's so much he wouldn't understand about us, from our language to our electricity. He wouldn't understand much of our Unitarian Universalist contemporary practice either. Why do we have this pig up here to help us remember things? What's even going on? But I like to imagine that he would understand our commitment to transformation and adaptation to a world that is changing, our posture of open-heartedness and open-mindedness. He would understand why we send our youth and adults off to St. Thomas Catholic Church today to experience worship and talk to a priest, learning about that tradition, keeping their belief bags open. He would see how we grow spiritually and ethically in response to experience, learning, relationship, all that unfolds around us. And I like to think, at least in that small way, he would feel right at home. So may we know the stories of our martyrs who died for innovation in religion, who died for the way we practice our faith now. May their commitments inspire us to venture boldly and explore. May we keep our minds and our hearts open. May we seek the truth wherever it leads us. May it be so. May we make it so. And amen.
I invite you all to rise and bow to your spirit one last time to sing our closing song together. as my heart beats, I must answer yes to love. Disappointment pierced me through, still I kept on loving you. If they ask what I did best, tell them I said yes to love.
The work is to go out, firm in our convictions, yet having written them in pencil, so we know that we can change and adjust and grow when new experiences, new thinking, new ways of being come to us. So let us go out into the world doing this good and important work rooted in a legacy of centuries. Let us go in peace and go in love.